A 7.0 earthquake hit Haiti on January 12, 2010. The sky over Port-au-Prince went gray with dust, and the world began to hear reports of chaos, death, and cries for help. Within days, the world responded. In the U.S. alone, a staggering 1 out of 2 households donated about $1.4 billion to the relief efforts.
The public, the American public, was more generous for Haiti in our history, in American Red Cross, than any other single country in our entire 130-year history.
People responded in a way that was completely an expression of solidarity for the first couple months. Globally, $2.2 billion was raised through private donations.
The money went to aid agencies calibrated for crisis, although recent performances by these non-governmental organizations, NGOs, have been controversial. 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, the Asian tsunami, and, especially, Rwanda.
The Rwanda genocide became public notion, and in many people's minds, the failure of aid agencies either to stop the genocide or to help stop it. So there was a tremendous sense of angst at the time, if you like, and searching for the way forward.
But this time, the agencies thought they had it figured out.
I can still see them, all the leaders and the representatives of all those donor countries and the NGOs that came together in this huge hall in New York. And they swore on the graves of their mothers, that this time it would be different.
Veteran journalist Linda Pullman had spent 2 decades watching NGOs hop from disaster to disaster, doing whatever they wanted, often duplicating efforts. But Haiti was going to change all that.
It never happened before that donors and aid organizations agreed to cooperate. They called it Humanitarian Aid 2.0. Haiti was going to be the starting point for something new. Didn't happen.
10 months after the earthquake, we went to Haiti to find out what happened to those good intentions and all that money.
Now you will see.
Jesus. Look at that. And what it looks like is that it got shelled. This could be Beirut from the 70s.
The fundraising for the aid effort had been unprecedented. President and Mrs. Obama both made personal appeals. Former Presidents George W. Bush and Bill Clinton headed up a special fund. Not only had more Americans donated to Haitian relief than for any other disaster ever, but they had donated in new ways. The Red Cross raised nearly $500 million, $7 million within 48 hours via text message. The money was raised quickly, and the clear implication was that it would be spent quickly. 1.5 million people left homeless were desperate for relief in at least 1,300 camps. One of those people was a 25-year-old mother, Wilna Vital. It was 10 months after the quake, and she was surprised that she and her family still lived under a tarp. We were surprised that, despite $1.4 billion donated for relief, the tarp wasn't even given to her. She'd had to buy it herself for $12.
There's no NGO helping you.
avec vous dire pas un travail, il souffre petit moment, obligé. Je vais arrêter de l'orage. Merci.
7 miles outside of Port-au-Prince, on a stripped hillside, Camp Canon-2. It was hot, it was humid, and it was tense.
How many people in this area? Yeah, we're talking 5,000 people. How many toilets do they have?
6 toilets.
6 toilets. Wow. The toilets are very, very close to where people are actually living. Yeah.
Où est là ces toilettes nous coûtent un café? Cette matière fécale là, l'année passée, elle fait tellement fait mal, nous même pas arrêter encore parce que tellement respecté pas.
Oh God. Okay.
6 toilets for 5,000 people. An Irish NGO had built these latrines, but no one was in charge of cleaning them. The Haitians told us they would, but they didn't have the equipment.
The latrine situation, I was shocked.
Dr. Mark Schuller of York College walked through more than 800 camps and compiled a definitive study of conditions there.
The average was over 300 people per one toilet. Almost half the toilets hadn't been cleaned since January 12th.
And cholera had just been discovered in the north.
C'est faire prévention contre maladie que le choléra qui c'est plus gros candidat nous gagne en moment. Candidat ça, c'est seul candidat qui pas connaît ni belle femme, ni bel garçon, ni blanc, ni nègre.
So I see the signs for cholera, but where do you wash your hands?
Qu'on nous va pour nous boire. Même, merci. Ah, il est là, il a tombé, l'eau a tombé là, il est entré en bas. Viens boire, on fait une sorte de poudre. Cap tombé, malgré le pourri, il doit arrêter n'importe quel vent, cause quelqu'un crase. Exactement, madame, moi petite, moi là, nous.
Many Americans do not know that this happened. They gave money to make it better for you.
Du côté pas possible, c'est rien du tout. Toutes les autres bails manger à gogo, mais nous pas de j'en a trouvé avec pas possible.
It was easy enough to see from the tarps and the tents that relief workers had been here at some point. The question was, had they been back since?
Do you have a lot of people who come here to see this?
OEM, INOP, Aspen, ACF, All Vision.
Just come and...
Well, certainly money has been spent on nice cars, and for those who don't have homes, in hotels and meals, certainly. I'm very, very, very confident the vast majority of the money has been spent on Haiti.
David Meltzer is in charge of international relief for the American Red Cross. It is the largest NGO in Haiti.
You go through those camps and you see people living underneath tarps. Who provided those tarps? Non-governmental organizations. You see people cooking with pots and pans, with blankets. Where did that come from? People drinking water. Where did that water come from? Non-governmental organizations. People going into latrines. Who built the latrines? Who maintains the latrines? Non-governmental organizations.
We walked through hundreds of camps, large and small, and we did see tarps, but many of them were torn or leaking. We did see pots and pans, but many of them were being sold to buy food. We did see water, but most of it wasn't clean enough to drink. And as for the latrines,
there's a lot of despair.
A great deal. You're going to see this with consistency in every camp that you go.
Mark Snyder is a former Coast Guardsman, now a human rights advocate with International Action Ties, a community development organization. He says that aid standards that were drawn up in the 1990s are routinely ignored in Haiti.
The minimal standards, how much water, how many people per toilet, what size their houses are. Not a single camp here, after 10 months, adheres to that.
Are people living here?
Yeah, he lives there with the baby.
He lives there with the baby.
There's a humanitarian charter where the big NGOs like the Red Cross, like CARE, like Save the Children, got together and said, here are the minimum standards for humanitarian aid.
These aid guidelines are called SPHERE standards, and Peter Walker of Tufts University knows them better than just about anybody. He helped develop them.
The SPHERE standards are a set of universal standards put together by aid agencies to try and capture just exactly what people caught up in a crisis have a right to expect. So they're based around, what do you really need to survive in a crisis? What's going to keep you alive?
The average water consumption is 15 liters per person per day, that no more than 20 people can share a toilet, that they must be either segregated by gender or by households.
But everywhere we went, we saw the same scene over and over. Waste running through the streets, trash heaps, filth.
The average American could never fathom the way that, human beings are living in Haiti.
Congresswoman Yvette Clarke represents a New York congressional district with a large Haitian American population.
I visited a camp which was actually built on a concrete platform and had to have had over 100,000 people in there. What we're talking about in terms of camps are similar to what we're seeing in Somalia right now, right? So they're tents made of tarpaulin. And if anyone knows tarpaulin, it's a oil-based plastic. So imagine being in one of the hottest climates ever, and the only shelter you have is something that traps heat on concrete, and then have to fend for yourself and your children and create as secure an environment for what meager possessions you may have.
This camp is called Place Saint-Pierre. We were told that there are 3,000 families here, so that's approximately 7,000 people. We saw exactly 3 toilets for all those people, again, right in the middle of town. And the smell is almost indescribable.
Do not barf in the car.
I won't. I got it. Okay, I'm fine. How can they live like this?
To walk into these camps, the first thing that you notice is the smell, unfortunately. But on top of that, you have mud, and a lot of very thick and very slick, at this point, mud. It's very, very well-trafficked areas, very crowded. Imagine a football field with 6,000 people living in it.
Before the earthquake, it was a park to play soccer.
This was a park to play soccer?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no grass anymore, it's all mud, and it's very thick mud. And because these tents are sometimes 8 inches apart, and there's maybe a footpath where you can have like 1.5 feet between tents.
You can smell the latrines because we're so close to the latrines, and because of the wet, you feel soaked in it.
On the other side, you're 8 inches between you and the next family over. So where does the mud go? But underneath the tents. And so people sleep on, this mud.
So how many toilets for how many people?
10 toilets, 9,000 people use. What?
9,000 people use 10 toilets?
This was 10 months after the quake. Why were people still living like this, especially if there were standards that NGOs were supposed to follow? Well, for one thing, enforcing the standards is basically done through an honor system.
There's no legal requirement anywhere, or there's no yet sense of there being, for instance, an industry association that you're a member of which requires you to deliver to those standards. So it's all about peer pressure.
There are no binding rules in the humanitarian world. You can come as you please, you can go when you please, you can spend your money on what you want to spend it on, and you can or cannot follow codes of conduct.
Theoretically, a strong government could have kicked out ineffective NGOs. But Haiti's government wasn't strong before the earthquake, and after, it was almost non-existent. No one really knows how many NGOs are in Haiti. Estimates range from 10,000 to 12,000, which gives Haiti the most NGOs per capita in the world. And no one knows how credible or efficient they are because they don't report to anyone.
There is no central registration to find out exactly the reasons why they're here, if they keep their promises, the money that they raise and the money that they spend. There's no registration. Each and every one of those 10,000 or 12,000 NGOs are here to live their own dream.
I think that's being generous, saying they're a parallel government. I say they've supplanted government in Haiti.
What does that say in the red graffiti? Down with being hungry, we want to eat.
They're packed in, and the toilets are right on the street. What camp is this, guys?
Champ Mars, ground zero of the Haiti Misery Tour. This camp should look familiar. About 16,000 people living in what used to be a park across the street from the presidential palace in downtown Port-au-Prince. It's an easy stop for journalists and aid workers, with little to show for the record amount of relief money raised. And the people living there were tired of it. A man walked up to us.
I want to know. I always see everything, same things, nothing never changes.
He always saw white people coming here, take shots, filming, ask people how they're living, and didn't see nothing change. How come you go live like that in this place, a place that you used to visit every Sunday with your family, and they don't know how long they're gonna be in this place? And they mad.
No, people are very poor, but they're not stupid. They are very, very aware of the fact that the money was raised with their suffering and with their poverty, and it's not being spent on them.
So they estimate the population of the whole area to be 32,000, I believe.
Yeah.
32,000 people displaced.
Bonsoir. Bonsoir. Comment ça va?
For many camp residents, their jobs literally collapsed during the quake, along with their homes and whatever savings they had. And now, they were stuck in a kind of purgatory.
Nothing. Encore? Oh, she doesn't.
One of the main things is that they've had their will removed from them. They don't get to make decisions in their own lives. They have to sit here and wait for people to help them, as opposed to being engaged in the actual decision-making process, which has not occurred.
Bon, pour aider, nous avons une personne qui aide nous, tous events, qui te fait nos cadeaux de latrine. Et actuellement, la toilette, c'est plein. Malgré qu'il est plein, bon, nous continuons à aller là-dedans. No, no, possibility.
Yeah, they don't have the equipment.
They don't have the equipment, yeah. What was your work before the earthquake?
Moi, c'est un technicien plombier, moi, c'est Saint-Unité.
This actually has latrines, where you're talking almost 70% of camps do not.
There are many people who gave money to help Haitians. Many, 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 many people. Where would you tell them their money has gone?
Bon, tout simplement que ça me décale dire les faire, c'est payer au bien bel hôtel pour dormir. C'est payer bel hôtel ou les belles machines. C'est ça que me dit. Mais le peuple là, il a toujours été bien dans la même misère noire.
All the people I know who gave money to Haiti, that is not what we thought would be the situation. I still question where the money went. I'll tell you one thing, it didn't go there.
Humanitarian Aid 2.0 wasn't supposed to be like this. The United Nations had coordinated a cluster system with the NGOs to make the relief effort more efficient, but the NGOs themselves gave it mixed reviews.
There are various disciplines, health, shelter, and the American Red Cross is active in many of those disciplines. It is literally a big tent, and it's the best way, as we can see right now, to coordinate.
Going to these meetings, I realize that there are a lot of NGOs that are here in Haiti that are doing good work, but nobody's talking to each other.
Alita Frischman runs a small NGO focused on women and children.
And nobody knows what services the other ones are given and where, and so a lot of times you have services that are concentrated in one camp where no camp, another camp has absolutely no NGOs that are representative.
The issue in Haiti was you had about 15 charities, ourselves included, providing 90% of the assistance. It was the hundreds or thousands of others who, lack of resources, it's difficult for them to coordinate.
I've had good experiences and I've had bad experiences. When there came a time that the rainy season was coming and I needed 8,000 tarps to cover our camp because the tarps were already ripped and sun damaged. I got those tarps from a large organization,
Can you say which one came
Red
through?
Cross.
Red Cross.
The Red Cross, yeah. But there's been times that I'm not going to say, but that I've gone to large organizations requesting something very simple, and it wasn't delivered.
The lack of coordination explains why we were hearing stories that made no sense, like camps that had been supplied with soap but not water, or in the case of Wilna's camp, condoms but not food.
In the military, you talk of the fog of war. In our industry, you talk about the fog of disaster, and coordination is always a challenge. And the cluster system is an attempt to ease some of the burden during those foggy early days of coordination.
Do you think it's been successful? Because I've heard a lot of mixed things about it.
It's been partially successful.
And the first big test of this system was about to happen.
There's going to be a hurricane that hits Haiti, Hurricane Thomas. What preparations have been made in order to ensure that these people are safe? Nothing.
A Category 2 hurricane was supposed to hit Haiti within 24 hours. And the cluster system, the NGOs and the United Nations, told the people in the camps to evacuate.
This is consistent with the what was described recently by Refugee International as a paralyzed disaster response. Virtually no coordination. They talked about what's going to happen after everyone gets killed and all the tarps are ripped. They've had 10 months to prepare for what's going to happen when it hits.
One Miami businessman was so frustrated by this that he flew in to pay Haitians who had homes to provide shelter for 400 children who didn't.
We would just have thought by now that, you know, the big boys, the Clinton Foundations and stuff, were going to come here with, you know, houses for everybody. Yeah, I'm blown away that we're still dealing with this stuff.
I wonder how sturdy the Chinese tents are.
They're not waterproof.
They're
When it
not?
rains, no.
12 hours before the hurricane was due to hit, we went back to Camp Caribou.
This is Mike, and they've informed them that they should drop their tents.
It's me. It's me, Tim. It's me.
Sure.
You're gonna this stage there, that, and with it all that after that will get flat down.
And then what are you supposed to do? Stay in the flattened tent?
Is it crazy? Everybody is scared right now today.
Scared?
Yeah, everybody is scared. Me, I'm not scared. I'm always like that. I'm not scared, I'm cool. They say you to flood the camp and go. Go where? In the street. It's right in the street. The problem is me, I got a baby. Fuck.
Wilna wasn't leaving. She said she and her husband couldn't wander the streets during a hurricane with 2 children.
How many of them do you think are going to evacuate during the hurricane?
0.
For once, Haiti got lucky. The eye of the hurricane skirted the island. But then, within days, came the cholera epidemic, brought on by a lack of clean water and poor sanitation. It was exactly the thing that the organization Oxfam America had been working frantically to prevent.
It's not sexy, and it's hard to get donor money for these kinds of things because they're like, what kind of work do you do? And you're like, pee and poo. And what we have to remember is that we have to provide people with the most basic level of services as well. A place to go to the bathroom, to go to the toilet, a way to get clean drinking water, a place to dispose of trash. And why do we do all of that? For their health. What I can say is that Oxfam is reaching 450,000 people. That's over 20% of the earthquake-affected population. That's one agency doing water and sanitation. We're maxed out. We are totally maxed out. I can say personally, everyone is working around 90 hours a week.
By the time the epidemic peaked, cholera claimed over 6,000 lives.
If you look at Haiti, the day before the earthquake and the day after, and today, there's no difference.
Why is that?
Why is it? Because the billions of well-meaning dollars that were donated by 1 out of 2 Americans, for example, and all the international funds, nothing's visible.
Dr. Barth Green, a Miami-based neurosurgeon, runs Project Metashare, a well-regarded medical NGO.
I know some of the concerts that were put on in this country, very little came out of them, and they were these huge efforts with wonderful, well-meaning people that, you know, entertainers and industry people that they thought were directing funds into Haiti. But they're not. I can tell you that, that most of the money did not leave the United States.
Every NGO is its own kingdom. If, they were to solve all the problems of Haitian people, that would essentially put them out of business, wouldn't it? They're looking for the next disaster. They're not looking for how I keep this family together and protect them against violence in an IDP camp. That's not their role. So they can't spend their money towards that. That money gets banked.
That money gets banked and accumulates interest, which many NGOs roll into a general operating fund. This is business as usual in the aid world, and it's all legal under generally accepted accounting principles.
Well, one of the shortcuts towards an answer to what happened to the money is how much money do you have left? And why are you not spending it on things that urgently need to be done?
We raised over $13 million in the first year after the earthquake. We spent exactly that much.
CRS received about $180 million.
$482 million to date.
We spent $65 million in fiscal year 2010, which included most of the first year after the earthquake. And then for this year, we expect to spend $93 million.
So far, we've spent or have under contract to spend a little over 2/3, a little over $300 million.
"10 months after our first visit, we went back to Haiti to see the result of all these hundreds of millions of dollars spent.
Having gone to the camps and walked through, and I was there 10 months ago, and then I went back, it looks like those people are still in pretty bad shape.
The numbers, the statistics will tell you that things are much improved in the sense that there used to be about 1.5 million homeless people. Now there are 600,000.
That's not exactly true. The UN estimates that only 1/3 of the Haitians made homeless by the quake remain in the camps, but the UN never counts the people in unofficial camps, and it doesn't count the people in camps of fewer than 500. So no one really knows exactly how many people still need help. But Luke King, Country Coordinator for Catholic Relief Services, or CRS, said things were going pretty well.
If you judge things by simply appearances, I can understand why someone would say it was a paralyzed relief effort. But if you look at it more scientifically, you look at real, true indicators of people's well-being, morbidity and mortality from disease, that actually went down after the earthquake response. There were no major outbreaks of disease except for the cholera outbreak.
The conditions in there are extremely difficult, but the basics of food, minimal shelter, which is a tarp for most people, food, water, access limited to health care, those basics do exist for a large percentage of those people.
Première question, je poser parce que je connais la Croix-Rouge, surtout pour la Croix-Rouge américaine, ils ont une force comme dans le côté que pour venir des peuples avec des miniers qui sont victimes avec ces là. Et me la Croix-Rouge pas jamais fait aucune intervention là.
Camp Canando, 20 months after the quake. The camp leader wasn't exactly happy to see us.
Ils étaient là en novembre. Okay. Bon, ONG nek man passé, on passé là, faire photo, faire une balle en pile, caméra, on prend celle ça fait. Situation plus mal que mois de novembre. Pour moi, ONG écrase vinn caser pays à plus. Pour moi même, en tant que dirigeant, et écrase vinn caser pays à raison. On regarde ONG a obtenu des gros fortes sommes cob qui nan mais pour venir de les gens qui plus démunis et ouais pendant apparition dans pays a, yo vinn plus pauvre.
Unbelievably, conditions in the camp, including the latrines, had gotten worse.
Parce que on côté pas moyen l'eau pour boire, ou pas moyen pour faire besoin physiologie, ou pas moyen de logement social, pas rien du tout. Et ressources humaines pas gen du tout, situation vraiment compliquée là pour nous. Dépasser.
Human development takes time. People say aid, they think it's just dropping off food or delivering water. That's really not what I think what most organizations are about. It's really about human development and investments in education, investments in infrastructure, investments in healthcare. These things take a long time.
And meanwhile, millions of dollars in NGO spending has created a whole new economy in the disaster zone.
You're seeing rents skyrocket. You know, the UN themselves say that like 300%, you know, that rents have gone up since the earthquake. You can call it non-profiteering, you like, you can call it disaster capitalism if you like, but that's what's happening right now in Haiti.
Yes, that's normal. But I saw in a place like Sierra Leone, for example, where I stayed for quite some time, after 11 years of civil war, everything was broken. And one of the first things that got repaired after the aid caravan moved in there was the local golf course.
Go tonight at some fancy restaurant, make it tall. You are going to see.
That night, the aid caravan wasn't too hard to find. They were at a restaurant right across the street from a camp.
For $72.
The aid industry takes care of itself too, not only with making sure that they get the most donor money as an organization, but also to make sure that they can have a good life.
So we're sitting maybe 50 feet away from a camp. We're sitting in a restaurant where there's escargot in the menu for $7 US. And if you want a New York steak, if you're missing New York, you can have that too. That's $34. And there's also lobster salad. That's $15.50. That's an appetizer.
It is a lack of respect that you show people, not only for all the promises that you are breaking, but also for that stuff, you know, also for the huge gap between those people living in camps right across from really expensive restaurants.
A group of foreign supporters, many who come to help, who come from civil societies that are accustomed to a certain way of life. They're not gonna go and forage for food in an IDP camp. They're not gonna empathize with individuals who are sleeping on concrete when they have the budget within their organizations to stay at a hotel. When you become that desensitized, even though you're doing good work, it doesn't occur to you that when you go to purchase a steak and you have to walk over everyday Haitian who's laying on the ground, how that makes that person feel in terms of their own humanity.
I'm wondering if it's an image question. I'm just wondering if the community here is conscientious of the fact that when they walk into these restaurants, that they may be offending the people they're supposed to help.
I do think we need to be sensitive to it. And I think that's really all I can say about it. We need to be sensitive to it, while also understanding that life is going to move on. People are going to want to eat. People are going to want to relax from time to time. But we should be sensitive to it.
And it is a lot of money, because it's not just private donations that are flowing to the NGOs, but public funds from as many as 70 donor nations.
That official donor money, brought together by the more than 70 donor governments, amounts to a yearly $130 billion. It is a lot of money. And then on top of that is all the money that you and I take out of our pockets to support our favorite charities with. The United Nations once did an attempt to count how many international aid organizations there are competing for a piece of all that money available. And the United Nations stopped counting at 37,000. So you have this ant's nest.
And in the case of the United States, that taxpayer money goes to that ant's nest with strings attached. In fact, experts say, most of it is spent before it ever leaves the States.
Delco for the generators, to Ford for the SUVs, to Dell for the computers.
This is called tide aid, a phenomenon well known in the aid world.
For example, food aid. America is the biggest donor of food aid in the world, but the bulk of that food aid is American grain. So America, as the food aid donor, will not allow organizations to buy cheap African grains, which would be better and quicker, etc. No, they want you to buy American grain, ship it to Africa on an American ship, and then distribute it by American organizations. So the business of the food aid, the transport and the packing and the growing and etc. is all American business. It's employment for and American economics. That is tide aid.
There's a saying in the aid world that if you accept USAID funds, all the money goes home. That might make sense when what's needed can't be found locally, but in the case of Haiti, almost no money has gone to Haitian companies, and nearly 93% of USAID funding went to contractors in Maryland, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. That last number is not specific to Haiti because for years, the United States has sent more of its foreign aid money back to itself than any other donor nation.
93% of USAID funds come back to the U.S. 93%. The idea is our taxpayer dollars should benefit us.
Like everything in life, it comes down to politics. But if you would buy the grains in Africa, you could buy, for the same money, you could buy much more grain. And also, it wouldn't take you 3 months to get it to Africa. By that time, people are dead.
By their own accounting, the Red Cross still has over $100 million sitting in the bank. CRS has tens of millions. They both say this money isn't for relief, it's for long-term projects.
Well, hello. Today is the long term. Let's start. Let's do these things.
Dr. Green's Project MediShare has operated in Haiti for nearly 20 years, among other programs, educating Haitian doctors, nurses, and caregivers. But the mission changed with the earthquake.
I called up a friend of mine. I called up a lot of friends of mine who had airplanes, and they said, "Are you crazy?" And I called up one friend of mine who was crazy, and he got on his plane the next morning, and we had no intelligence about what would be waiting for us. And we stepped off the plane into the UN compound at the end of the airport, and there were just hundreds of people dying, bleeding, arms, legs missing, crushed, all of them crush injuries.
This effort ultimately became the only critical care hospital in Haiti. But despite the fact that there is still relief money both in the pipeline and in the bank, Project MediShare's operation here is in trouble.
And we were in the right place at the right time, and we gave wonderful medical care, but the truth is that we were always on a very tight string, whether we were going to be open another day, a week, or a month. The Red Cross came in and said, okay, we'll give you, 6 months, and then it was 12 months.
At this point, the American Red Cross, we have spent or under contract over 2/3 of the money. The other third has been fully allocated. We feel a need to build back better, put people in permanent homes. So the rest of our money has been allocated.
Now, this December, we're going to be closing our hospital.
Dawn at Camp Carideux. It is our second trip to Haiti. 20 months after the quake, there is visible progress. CRS has built 800 transitional shelters. There are 14,000 people in this camp, but CRS says they can't build anymore. They say there isn't enough space to add more shelters and still stay within the international standards. But when it comes to the latrines, those same standards are being blatantly ignored. There are only 50 in this camp, or one for every 280 people.
We've built some emergency latrines and some permanent latrines.
We've partnered with Catholic Relief, so we're paying them to run a system. It's essentially, use an American term, an 800 number, where Haitians can call a sanitation company to clean out the latrines. They're supposed to be regularly cleaned. If they don't, then they can call this number, and that's with American Red Cross funds. All sorts of American Red Cross dollars and other Red Cross and Red Crescent organizations go to not only building the latrines, but maintaining them.
On qui responsable aller les collines, moi tirer les lits, qui te dit me venir ouest de ka aider pour ta faire débarrasser yo. Mais
He's contacted the person, you know, in charge of this.
And then, just beyond Camp Carado, we found Wilna one last time. She put on her best dress when she saw us, and we saw she and her husband had another child on the way. 20 months of living in a camp had changed everything: her face, her hair, her voice. Her circumstances were just about the only thing that hadn't changed. She is one of the thousands of uncounted refugees living in an unofficial camp within a camp, a whole different level of the inferno. Officially, she doesn't exist, and it means she gets no help from the NGOs. She can see the shelters in Camp Carado and the water tank, yet she doesn't have access to either, and she doesn't understand why.
Bon, yo di ONG, pour ça fait plusieurs qui fait banon ONG. Parce que plusieurs femmes de di ONG, yo tout là quand là, nous pas personne même pas ensemble là. Nous pas jamais venir pour nous reler nous pour parler ensemble avec nous. Ou après tout aux autres bréo, tout boy ici.
Her 2-year-old son is malnourished. So is she.
This is your food? For how many days?
C'est quoi rouge qui a décidé. Mais quoi qui a décidé, elle va même pour rien du tout. On a décidé pour mettre tête ensemble avec nous pour ta fonction pour nous là. Parce que pas bien vivre là. Pour nous demander comment faire avec l'argent.
There are all sorts of numbers, and numbers blur the picture, which show that the immediate relief effort has been successful in reaching 1.5 million people consistently from the early hours all the way to today.
And yet, according to a recent UN bulletin, there are fewer working latrines in the camps now than there were last spring. That might explain why we didn't see lines of people waiting to use them. They can't. That same report says about 7% of the Haitians have access to drinking water, down from nearly 50% last spring. And nearly half the population isn't receiving enough food. So how do you explain the disconnect between what the NGOs told us and what we saw on the ground in Haiti? We can't. And in many cases, neither can they, because in spite of all the money they handle, they are accountable to no one but themselves.
How does the Red Cross hold itself accountable?
Of course, we have a website, everyone does. We push out a ton of information about Haiti, not just in English, but in also Haitian Creole. Lots of financial data, what we're doing, where we're doing. It's all available in our website. We have, in terms of transparency and accountability, not only do we have, of course, an internal audit department, we have an external auditor.
But internal audits and external auditors only go so far. In most cases, they're just checking the math. And the Red Cross dissolved its own disaster service committee more than 4 years ago.
It's a really bad signal to send, especially given the track record of the Red Cross. People have given them the benefit of the doubt time and time again. And I think it's because they've established one of the largest networks for disaster relief. They're like the Halliburton of disaster relief, right? But that's still no excuse for not being accountable, for not raising the bar for what an international NGO can and should be doing in the 21st century.
In the past, NGOs were not required to tell you what they spent the money on. Even now, they're simply required to file a 990 tax form. Many line items are voluntary. Some NGOs, like Project MetaShare, are good at this. Others are not.
Are they being most effective and most efficient in changing the conditions on the ground for everyday Haitians? I would say at the surface and looking at what I've seen and the feedback that I've gotten, no.
So what can be done about all this? Well, the American Red Cross is chartered by Congress, and no fewer than 10 congressional committees have oversight authority. While congressional hearings to force transparency are rare, they do happen, usually after the public starts demanding action.
We can, I think, open the lens through the Congress because of the way that we fund many of these NGOs. But I think that the private sector, and there has to be some demands from the people for accountability from these organizations.
Measuring accountability, that's a tricky one, isn't it? For instance, is there any evidence that the aid agency is talking to local people? Do you host meetings where you ask people to come along and express their views? Do you publicize the plans? This is what we are going to do. What do you think? You know, town hall meetings, that sort of thing. Do they take place? So you could look for indicators like that.
Here's one indicator we thought of. Do any of these guys have plans to leave, especially if the Haitian government asks them to?
I think we would probably debate with them a bit, but we're in Haiti. We're an American institution, and if the government here no longer wants us to be here, then yes, we would respect that.
Is there ever a point where CRS can declare a country a success story and say, we did it, and let's pack up and go because there are other places that need us?
I would say no, but not because there haven't been successes. It's because it's our mission to accompany the church in these countries.
I know in the case for the American Red Cross now, following the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, we said to the public, this will take 5 years. And 5 years, on the 5th anniversary of the recovery program, we finished on time, on budget.
How long is Haiti going to take?
I don't know. We think we'll be done in about 3 or 4 years.
To be clear, no one doubts that the aid agencies operating in Haiti, especially the workers in the field, have good intentions.
I want to be done with Haiti. I mean, in my particular job, what says to me is that, you know, if foreigners like yourselves still want to come to Haiti and do stories on Haiti and it's still in the international limelight, it means that we have done something wrong.
And when you work with these people, I've got goosebumps now thinking about their courage. You want to change it. You want to give them change.
I like to be with people in periods of transition, of important transitions in their life.
You want to do good.
Of course.
So the big question is there a way to be better at doing good?
Well, what can happen to make the aid industry better? Wow. Put in place, basic law that says the government has a responsibility to protect and look after its citizens, and when agencies come in, they have a responsibility to show that they're competent. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff, right?
Make them independent of donor attention, make them independent of donor demands. Then aid will be a lot better, because then you can prioritize what victims need and not what the organizations need.
Remember that the NGOs don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in a very specific policy in political and economic milieu where they respond to external pressures. They follow external mandates. You want to change NGOs' behavior, you talk to the donors and say, there's how things should be run differently. I'm not going to go head-to-head with Celia Struthers and say you suck. That's not going to be effective. That's what's effective is pulling your funding if you don't do this.
If there is a lesson to be learned from the mistakes being made in Haiti, it is this. The idea here is not that you should stop giving money to aid organizations. Rather, give wisely and take the time to follow your money and hold NGOs accountable.
First of all, choose your organization real carefully. Make sure that you know what the organization does. Study if they did good work in the past. Be very aware of where they are bringing your money. Make the effort of doing your homework, and perhaps, and then make the best choice.
Ask NGOs to not do things the way they've been doing for 20 years. It's going to be difficult, but I think that you got some that are willing to do it.
This is my house and I'm entitled to know what goes on under its roof. You don't know the half of what goes on under its roof.
2 kerroksen väkeä, uudet jaksot, 15. tammikuuta alkaen Ykkösellä. Kaksi kidnappattua sotilasta palaa kotiin 17 vankeusvuoden jälkeen. Alkuperäinen israelilainen menestyssarja Sodan vangit. Maanantaisin 10 Teemalla.
Tositapahtumiin perustuva jännitystrilogia. Red Riding. 3 sunnuntaina Ykkösellä.
Things get more interesting beneath the surface. You should know that.
I seem to spend my life searching for patterns. What if there isn't one?
Uusi brittiläinen dekkarisarja Vera Stanhope tutkii.
What were you all waiting for?
Perjantaisin Ykkösellä.
Mistä tuli Suomeen leijona?
Onko Suomen leijona sittenkin ruotsalainen? Kuinka suomalaista ruokaa ovat lihapullat tai graavikala? Suomi on ruotsalainen. Sunnuntaisin Ykkösellä.
Suomi on ruotsalainen.
Olen Roman Schatz ja vaikka olen asunut Suomessa yli 25 vuotta, ihmiset edelleen kyselevät minulta, mitä olen mieltä Suomesta ja suomalaisista. Minäpä kerron. Aina maanantai-aamuisin Yle Radio 1.
Roman Schatzin Maamme-kirja maanantaisin kello 10.05. Yle Radio 1.
Ruotsalaisten asema tällä alueella vankistui entisestään ja näistä Hämeen seuduista tuli entistäkin selkeämmin sitten osa kehittyvää Ruotsin valtakuntaa.
Kuninkaittemme jäljillä, alkaen perjantaina 11. päivä Teemalla.
Yli 600 vuotta Suomi oli osa Ruotsin valtakuntaa.
Tanskalaissarja Rikos on pohjoismaisen rikosgenren suurimpia kansainvälisiä menestyksiä. Nyt sarjan 3. uusi tuotantokausi Suomen TV ensi-illassa Yle Fem-kanavalla.
Har du penge?
Ja.
Gå ned i tunnelen. Fortsæt til du ser en stor trappe på højre.
Rikos tiistaisin 10 Yle Fem-kanavalla.
Yle Uutisista hyvää myöhäisiltaa. Pakistanissa yli 100 ihmistä on kuollut pommi-iskuissa. Tuhoisin isku tapahtui Gettan kaupungissa, kun biljardihallissa räjähti 2 pommia, peräkkäin surmaten yli 80 ihmistä. 3. räjähdys tappoi yli 20 ihmistä uskonnollisessa kokoontumisessa Swatin maakunnassa Pakistanin luoteisosassa. Uhrimäärien pelätään vielä nousevan, sillä loukkaantuneita on satoja. Kyseessä oli yksi verisimmistä päivistä Pakistanissa moneen vuoteen. Kreikassa työttömyysluvut ovat nousseet euroajan ennätykseen. Kreikan tilastotoimiston mukaan maassa oli työttömiä lokakuussa yli 1,3 miljoonaa, eli vajaat 27% työvoimasta. Alle 24-vuotiaista nuorista työntekijöistä oli ilman työtä useampi kuin joka toinen. Vuonna 2009 alkaneen laman aikana 10 000 yritykset ovat tehneet konkurssin ja tuhannet liikkeet ovat joutuneet sulkemaan ovensa. Eurosetelit vaihdetaan uusiksi. Euroopan keskuspankki esitteli tänään Frankfurtissa uuden 5 euron setelin. Uusi seteli otetaan käyttöön toukokuussa. EKP:n on tarkoitus uusia muut eurosetelit vuoden välein. Seteliuudistuksen syynä on väärentäjien pelko.
No, tavoite on tosiaan se, että se olisi vaikeampi väärentää kuin tämä nykyinen. Eli pitää aina muistaa, että väärentäjienkin hallussa oleva teknologia kehittyy jatkuvasti ja meidän pitää tällaista kilpajuoksua keskuspankin ja väärentäjien välillä ja siinä kilpajuoksussa halutaan olla aina vähintään 2 askelta edellä.
Kuinka taitava vastustaja on?
Kyllähän siellä taitoa löytyy ja osaamista, mutta mutta pyritään pysymään edellä heitä.
Hallitus valmistelee jo uusia maaliskuussa päätettäviä menosäästöjä ja veronkorotuksia. Yle Uutisten tietojen mukaan päähallituspuolueiden kokoomuksen ja SDP:n tämänhetkiset arviot uudesta säästö- ja veronkorotustarpeesta vaihtelevat 0,5 miljardista eurosta vajaaseen miljardiin euroon vaalikauden loppuun mennessä. Säästötarve tarkentuu valtiovarainministeriön maaliskuisen talousennusteen perusteella. Nokia kertoi tänään myyneensä loppuvuonna matkapuhelimia odotettua paremmin. Nokia antoi iltapäivällä positiivisen tulosvaroituksen. Yhtiö sanoo myyneensä viime vuoden 3 viime kuukautena lähes 16 miljoonaa puhelinta, joista runsaas 1/4 oli Lumia älypuhelimia. Nokian osakekurssi oli tänään rajussa nousussa. Parhaimmillaan kurssin nousu kävi päivällä yli 16%. Viro toivoo Suomen kanssa nykyistä tiiviimpää yhteistyötä tietopalveluiden ja tietokoneturvallisuuden osalta. Helsingissä puhunut Viron presidentti kutsui Suomen liittymään Tallinnaan perustettuun Naton kyberpuolustuskeskukseen, joka on avoin Naton kumppanimaille.
Prescriptions, medical records, registering your company. If these things are interoperable, we achieve a level of service for our citizens that has never existed before. And secondly, we show the rest of Europe it works, because there's a lot of skepticism about all of this.
Ja tiedossa on poutaista pakkassäätä. Idästä virtaa maan etelä- ja keskiosiin kylmää ilmaa. Lämpötilat ovat lähes